Dad went out to try and get the brown bomber started. That was what we called our car. It was a 1948 Plymouth that was a dull brown and real big. Byron said it was turd brown. Uncle Bud gave it to Dad when it was 13 years old, and we'd had it for 2 years. Me and Dad took real good care of it, but some of the time it didn't like to start up in the winter. After 5 minutes, Dad came back and huffing and puffing and slapping his arms across his chest. Well, it was touch and go for a while, but the great brown one pulled through again. Everyone cheered. But me and Byron quit cheering and started frowning right away. By the way Dad smiled at us, we knew what was coming next. Dad pulled 2 ice scrapers out of his pocket and said, "Okay, boys, let's get out there and knock those windows out." We moaned and groaned and put some more coats on and went outside to scrape the car's windows. I could tell by the way he was pouting that Byron was going to try to get out of doing his share of the work. "I'm not going to do your part, Byron. You'd better do it, and I'm not playing either. Shut up, punk!" I went over to the brown bomber's passenger side and started hacking away at the scab of ice that was all over the windows. I finished Mama's window and took a break. Scraping ice off of windows when it's that cold can kill you. I didn't hear any sound coming from the other side of the car, so I yelled out, "I'm serious, Byron. I'm not doing that side too, and I'm only going to do half the windshield. I don't care what you do to me." The windshield on the brown bomber wasn't like the new 1963 cars. It had a big bar running down the middle of it, dividing it in half. "Shut up, you stupid mouth. I got something more important to do right now." I peeked around the back of the car to see what By was up to. The only thing he'd scraped off was the outside mirror, and he was bending down to look at himself in it. He saw me and said, "You know what, Square? I must be adopted. There just ain't no way 2 folks as ugly as your mama and daddy could give birth to someone as sharp as me." He was running his hands over his head like he was brushing his hair. I said, "Forget you," and went back over to the other side of the car to finish the back window. I had half off the ice off when I had to stop again and catch my breath. I heard Byron mumble my name. I said, "You think I'm stupid? It's not going to work this time." He mumbled my name again. It sounded like his mouth was full of something. I knew this was a trick. I knew this was going to be How to Survive a Blizzard Part 2. How to Survive a Blizzard Part 1 had been last night when I was outside playing in the snow, and Byron and his running buddy, Bubhead, came walking by. Bubhead had officially been a juvenile delinquent even longer than Byron. "Say, kid," By had said, "you want to learn something that might save your stupid life one day?" I should have known better, but I was bored, and I think maybe the cold weather was making my brain slow. So I said, "What's that?" "We gotta teach you how to survive a blizzard." "How?" Byron put his hands in front of his face and said, "This is the most important thing to remember, okay?" "Why?" "Well, first, we gotta show you what it feels like to be trapped in a blizzard. You ready?" He whispered something to Bubhead, and they both laughed. "I'm ready." I should have known that the only reason Bubhead and By would want to play with me was to do something mean. "Okay," By said. "First thing you gotta worry about is high winds." Byron and Bubhead each grabbed one of my arms and one of my legs and swung me between them, going, "Woo! Blizzard warnings, woo! Take cover." Bubhead counted to 3, and on the 3rd swing they let me go in the air. I landed head first into a snowbank. But that was okay, because I had on 3 coats, 2 sweaters, and a t-shirt, 3 pairs of pants, and 4 socks, along with a scarf, a hat, and a hood. These guys couldn't have hurt me if they'd thrown me off the Empire State Building. After I climbed out of the snowbank, they started laughing, and so did I. "Cool, baby bruh," By said. "You passed that part of the test with a B+. What do you think, Bubhead?" Bubhead said, "Yeah, I'd give that little punk a A." They whispered some more and started laughing again. "Okay," By said. "Second thing you gotta learn is how to keep your balance in a high wind. You gotta be good at this so you don't get blowed into no polar bear dens." They put me in between them and started making me spin round and round. It seemed like they spun me for about half an hour. When slobs started flying out of my mouth, they let me stop, and I wobbled around for a while before they pushed me back in the same snowbank. When everything stopped going in circles, I got up, and we all laughed again. They whispered some more, and then By said, "What you think, Bubhead? He kept his balance a good long time. I'm going to give him an A-. I ain't as hard a grader as you. I'm going to give the little punk a double A-. "Okay, Kenny, Now the last part of surviving a blizzard. You ready? Yep. You passed the wind test and did real good on the balance test, but now we got to see if you're ready to graduate. You remember what we told you was the most important part about surviving? Yep. Okay, here we go. Buphead, tell him about the final exam. Buphead turned me around to look at him, putting my back to Byron. Okay, Square, he started. I want to make sure you're ready for this one. You done so good so far. I want to make sure you don't blow it at graduation time. You think you ready? I nodded, getting ready to be thrown into the snow bank real hard this time. I made up my mind. I wasn't going to cry or anything. I made up my mind that no matter how hard they threw me in the snow, I was going to get up laughing. Okay, Buphead said. Everything's cool. You remember what your brother said about putting your hands up? Like this. I covered my face with my gloves. Yeah, that's it. Buphead looked over my shoulder at Byron and then said, Woo! High winds blowing snow. Woo! Look out! Blizzard a-comin'. Death around the corner. Look out! Byron mumbled my name, and I turned around to see why his voice sounded so funny. As soon as I looked at him, Byron blasted me in the face with a mouthful of snow. Man, it was hard to believe how much stuff By could put in his mouth. Him and Buphead just about died laughing as I stood there with snow and spit and ice dripping off my face. Byron caught his breath and said, Aw, man, you flunked! You done so good, then you go done flunk the blowin' snow section of How to Survive a Blizzard. You forgot to put your hands up. What do you say, Buphead? F? Yeah, double F minus. It was a good thing my face was numb from the cold already, or I might have froze to death. I was too embarrassed about getting tricked to tell them, so I went in the house and watched TV. So as me and By scraped off the ice of the brown bomber, I wasn't going to be fooled again. I kept on chopping ice off the back window, ignored By's mumbling voice. The next time I took a little rest, Byron was still calling my name, but sounding like he had something in his mouth. He was saying, K, L, L. When he started banging on the door of the car, I went to take a peek at what was going on. By was leaned over the outside mirror, looking at something in it real close. Big puffs of steam were coming out of the side of the mirror. I picked up a big, hard chunk of ice to get ready for Byron's trick. Hey, Helly, go get Ma, hurry up. I'm not playing, Byron. I'm not that stupid. You'd better start doing your side of the car, or I'll tear you up with this ice ball. He banged his hand against the car harder and started stomping his feet. Oh, please, Kay, help me, go get Ma. I raised the ice chunk over my head. I'm not playing. By, you better get busy or I'm telling Dad. I moved closer, and when I got right next to him, I could see boogers running out of his nose and tears running down his cheeks. These weren't tears from the cold either. These were big, juicy crybaby tears. I dropped my ice chunk. By, what's wrong? Helly, Kay, go get help. I moved closer. I couldn't believe my eyes. Byron's mouth was frozen on the mirror. He was as stuck as a fly on flypaper. I could have done a lot of stuff to him if it had been with me with my lips stuck on something like that, he'd have tortured me for a couple of days before he got help. Not me, though. I nearly broke my neck trying to get into the house to rescue Byron. As soon as I ran through the front door, Mama, Dad, and Joey all yelled, Close that door! Mama, quick! It's By! He's froze up outside! No one seemed too impressed. I screamed, Really? He's froze to the car! Help! He's crying! That shook them up. You could cut Byron's head off and he probably wouldn't cry. Kenneth Bernard Watson, what on earth are you talking about? Mama, please! Hurry up! Mama, Dad, and Joey threw on some extra coats and followed me to the brown bomber. The fly was still stuck and buzzing. Oh, Ma! Help me! Get me out of here! Oh, my Lord! Mama screamed. And I thought she was going to do one of those movie-style faints. She even put her hand over her forehead and staggered back a little bit. Joey, of course, started crying right along with Byron. Dad was doing his best not to explode laughing. Big puffs of smoke were coming out of his nose and mouth as he tried to squeeze his laughs down. Finally, he put his head on his arms and leaned against the car's hood and howled. Byron, Mama said, gently wiping tears off his cheeks with the end of her scarf. It's okay, sweetheart. How'd this happen? She sounded like she was going to be crying in a minute herself. Dad raised his head and said, Why are you asking how it happened? Can't you tell, Willona? This little knucklehead was kissing his reflection in the mirror and got his lips stuck. Dad took a real deep breath. Is your tongue stuck too? No, quit teasing. Daddy, help. Well, at least the boy hadn't got too passionate with himself, Dad thought. That was hilarious, and put his head back on his arms. Mama didn't see anything funny. Daniel, Watson, what are we going to do? What do you all do when this happens up here? Mama started talking Southern style when she got worried. Instead of saying here, she said here. And instead of saying you all, she said y'all. Dad stopped laughing long enough to say, Willona, I've lived in Flint all my life, 35 years. And I swear this is the first time I've ever seen anyone with their lips frozen to a mirror. Honey, I don't know what to do. Wait till he thaws out? Pull him off, Dad, I suggested. Byron went nuts. He started banging his hands on the Brown Bomber's doors again and mumbling, No, Mama, don't let him. Joey blubbered out, This is just like that horrible story Kenny read me about the guy from Narcissi who stared at himself so long he forgot to eat and starved to death. Mommy, please save him. She went over and hugged her arms around stupid Byron's waist. Mama asked Dad, What about hot water? Couldn't we pour enough hot water on the mirror so it would warm up and he could get off? She kept wiping tears off by his cheeks and said, Don't you worry, baby. We're going to get you out of this. But her voice is so shaky and southern that I wondered if we'd be driving around in the summer with a skeleton dangling from outside the mirror by its lips. Dad said, I don't know. Pouring water on him might be the worst thing to do, but it might be our only chance. Why don't you go get some hot tap water and I'll stay to wipe his cheeks? Joey told Bi, Don't worry, we'll come right back. She stood on her tiptoes and gave Bi a kiss. Then she and Mama ran inside. Dad cracked up all over again. Well, lover boy, I guess this means no one can call you Hot Lips, can they? Dad was killing himself. Or the last of the red-hot lovers either, huh? He tugged on Byron's ear a little, pulling his face back. Bi went nuts again. Don't do that! Mama, help! Cooey, go get Mama, hurry! I guess that's not going to work, is it? Every time he wiped away the tears and the little mustache of boogers on Byron's lip, Dad couldn't help laughing, until a little river of tears was coming out of his eyes, too. Dad tried to straighten his face out when Mama and Joey came running back with a steaming glass of hot water, but the tears were still running down his cheeks. Mama tried to pour water on the mirror, but her hands were shaking so much she was splashing it all over the place. Dad tried too, but he couldn't look at Byron without laughing and shaking. That meant I had to do it. I knew that if my lips were frozen on something and everybody was shaking too much to pour water on them except for Byron, he'd do some real cruel stuff to me. He probably would have accidentally splashed my eyes until they were frozen open, or put water in my ears until I couldn't hear anything. But not me. I gently poured a little stream of water over the mirror. Dad was right. This was the worst thing we could do. The water made a crackling sound and froze solid as soon as it touched the mirror and Bi's lips. Maybe Bi's mouth was frozen, but his hands sure weren't, and he popped me right in the forehead. I hate to say it, but I started crying too. It's no wonder the neighbors called us the weird Watsons behind our backs. There we were, all 5 of us, standing around a car with the temperature about 1,000,000 degrees below zero, and each and every one of us crying. Stop! Stop! Bi yelled. Daniel, Watson, what are we going to do? Mama went nuts. You got to get this boy to the hospital. My baby is going to die. Dad tried to look serious real quick. Willona, how far do you think I get driving down the street with this little clown attached to the mirror? What am I supposed to do? Have him run beside the car all the way down to the emergency room?